Hi guys, welcome to Money Theory. In today's video, we're going to talk about correlation. This video is sponsored by our Patreon members. If you'd like to support our channel, you can join our Patreon, link in the description below. So here is a research project I recently finished, and it is to analyze the stock returns historically and compare them to each other, comparing one stock to another, or ETF. So in the top right is the inputs. And in this first example, we're going to look at the S&P 500 comparing to the Dow Jones. So with our inputs, you fill it in and then you can get the output data right here. So on the left chart, it'll be the dates and then the price of the first stock and the return for that time interval, and then the price of the second stock and then the return of that second stock. So the start date is, in this case, will be January 2000, and then the end date will be today. Our interval will be every 90 days, so that means that our return is looking at the 90 days from January 2000 to end of March 2000. S&P 500 gained 3.4%, whereas Dow Jones lost 3.5%. So with correlation, we are going to look at all the returns from stock 1 versus stock 2, and each data point will go on that chart. The first stock return will be the x-axis, and then the second stock return will be the y-axis. So for example, this data point, 3.4 for S&P 500 is around here, and then Dow Jones, negative 3.5 will be over here. It's probably this dot over here. And then when we combine all of these data, all of these points, we get a chart over here on our bottom right. And then with scatter plots, you can do a correlation and create an equation to model the data for predictions. The R-square is the correlation, and it goes from -1 to +1. Anything close to 1 is a strong correlation, a 1-to-1 relationship, where the stock of 1 reflects the value of the stock return for number 2. And then the slope in the equation is how we can calculate the prediction. So here is 0.9, which is almost 1. And that way we can say that when the first stock, S&P 500, gains 10%, the second stock will likely be around 10%. And that's how we can model the data. Now let's do something else. Let's do QQQ to S&P 500. NASDAQ is a tech-heavy index fund. S&P 500 is also a little tech-heavy, but not quite as much as NASDAQ. So you can see that the slope is a little bit higher. The correlation is also a little bit less, so there's more variation in the data. So in this case, the slope is 1.3. which means that when S&P gains 10%, NASDAQ will gain about 13%. And vice versa. When S&P drops 10%, NASDAQ will likely drop 13%. And notice with this that we're going to change the interval or the start date. Let's change the interval. All this data will change, and even our data analysis will change. The R-square is about the same at 0.7. The slope slightly changed too. Now it's at 1.2. So did you notice that the values have changed? This means that just like looking at one individual stock, the window of time that we're looking into can affect our analysis. Whether we're changing the start, the end, or the interval can affect our analysis. Let's do one more. In the tech sector. And you can see in our chart, the slope is almost 0 and the R-square is almost 0 too. Then you can also look at the shape of the data. It's just scattered around. That means there's no particular trend. The data can't predict anything. This means that the two stocks that we're looking at are not correlated at all, and there is no pattern that we can predict. So looking at, let's say, Coke, if it gains 10%, we don't know what Microsoft would be. So what does that mean as an investor? This means that this can be a form of diversification, knowing that the stocks are not well correlated to each other. The returns of one will not be reflected in the other in any way. And by knowing that too, if you wanted to have a focus in your portfolio, you can see if you want such diversification or to not have a diversification. And that's our presentation. Currently, this is a proprietary document for me. I will see in the future if we can publish it for the public use. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed our video. If you'd like to support our channel, you can join our Patreon or buy me a coffee. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We also completed our financial coaching and business consulting website. Please check it out at moneytheory.net.